Welcome, everyone, to It Tastes Different Gaming Podcast, the podcast with 4 different flavors coming from 4 different gamers. I'm your host, Russell Rowe, and I want to welcome my co-host, Shane Eisterhold, Patrick Smith, and Nick Irwin.
Hey, Patrick. Where can they find us?
Well, the first place you should check out is our website at ittastesdifferent.com. This is the place where you can subscribe to all of our streams and connect to all of our social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook at It Tastes Different. We're also on Instagram at It Tastes Different PC. And then last but not least is Twitter, where you can find us at It Tastes Diff.
What's for dessert? We double dip into the chocolate fountain with the cost of gaming. Today we're going to talk about the cost of gaming, from consoles to the games themselves, heck, even controllers. And to start off, we're going to throw it over to Patrick.
Okay, so in this episode, we're going to kind of talk about, what it costs overall, everything to game now versus like when we were younger, when we were buying consoles. So one of the things, we all talk about, we're all familiar with is the cost of consoles themselves. So, consoles compared to today's prices. So if you think about inflation and stuff like that, consoles back in the day were more expensive than they are today. And when I'm talking about consoles, I'm talking about like Atari and stuff like that. I mean, because I think most of us can probably remember our first consoles were probably the Atari or maybe even the Intellivision. And maybe some of the luckier ones maybe got like the ColecoVision back in the day. I think for the most part, I can remember playing, I remember playing an Atari. Now, Atari had been out for quite a while since I was born, especially when you think of, the 2600. So I was born in the 80s, 1980. So that console had already been out for like 3 years. But that still was a $200 console back then. $200 in 1980 is pretty much equivalency of like $850 plus now when you think about that. So, and then you just think about now we're getting into the new console market. You could buy a new Xbox high end for $500. That's $300 cheaper than inflation cost of like the Atari. And same thing for, PlayStation. So, due to inflation, there's quite a bit of other factors that factor into that, considering like cost of living and stuff like that. But, gaming is always an expensive hobby, no matter who you are, whether you're the budget gamer, the super budget gamer, or, you're the cutting edge gamer, I think every one of us has multiple consoles, computers, all that kind of stuff, I mean, games are expensive, Nick, you want to kind of tell us, your history with gaming and stuff like that, and you can remember spending on consoles and games when you were younger?
I didn't own an Atari myself. My grandmother had an Atari, so I would go over there and play that. But my first console was a Nintendo, an NES. It was actually my brother's, but I played it more than he did. And then, kind of went from there, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64. I think the first one I actually bought on my own, I would say, was probably the Dreamcast. And then from there on, every console that came out after that. But as far as the cost of gaming, I mean, I remember, if you think about Nintendo games back in the day, they ranged from, the Nintendo NES came out at $199.99, which back then, and I think it came out in 85 here in the U.S., with inflation, that equals to around $434 today, or at least around 2013 or so, around there. It might be even more expensive nowadays. And then games themselves were a range from $10 to $60 even, for regular Nintendo games. For the really good ones, for the other ones, they're probably around $10, $40, somewhere around there. I remember even Nintendo 64 games being super expensive back when I was younger. I didn't buy the 64 myself. I was too young by then. My parents bought me one. I remember them buying me games for it, but I didn't get games for it that often because, at the time you don't really think about it, but, at the time they were expensive. They were around $60. And then we get into today's standard with, kind of going up through the years. And then we got PlayStation games where they did go off of cartridges. Cartridges were more expensive to manufacture, so CDs were a little bit cheaper, so the price did go down, right? We got like $40, $50 games at that point, and then console generation comes and goes, and we went up to $60, which, you know, when we went up to $60, that was like not something we all wanted to do, right? And that was not something we were all looking forward to. Yeah.
You know, talking about like cartridges and stuff, game cartridges have, you know, not until the last 15 years has like games standardized, because you just brought up a good point. Back in like Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis time, you could buy a game that would range from $40 to $100. I mean, I remember seeing $100 games pretty regularly that were just loose cartridge games. We're not talking about like the games with the guns and other peripherals. We're talking about just like normal cartridges. You know, and now it's kind of rare to see a game deviate from the $60 range. So, you know, games have been all over the place over the years, especially like, you know.
Nintendo has been the one company when it came to the 64 that had outrageous price differences between games. I want to say it was Zelda on 64 that was like $80 because it had the graphics pack that went with it. I don't know if you guys remember that, like the little adapter
booster pack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
that you plugged into the console. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and there was another one too that was in the $80 range. I cannot remember it, so I do apologize.
Probably like Star Fox that came with the
Star Fox. I think that's right. And so it's weird how that, you know, everybody else seemed to stay pretty solid with their pricing, but Nintendo's like, we got this. So here's $50, here's $80. It just seemed like a heck of a way to, you know, sell your stuff.
Right. And now everything is kind of baselined at $60, unless it's, you know, very rarely do games go over the $60 range at this current time frame. I mean, basically since 2005, we've been kind of sitting at, you know, that's 2005, but, you know, when was that? When they basically, I think it was around the time the 60 days. Yeah. 360, yeah. They started coming out $60 games, which was, you know, the 360 launched in 2005, so that would be about right. 2005, we started hitting $60 games, and they've been there since then. So 15 years, we've been kind of spoiled at $60 games. When you consider that a $60 game in 2005 was equivalent to an $80 game now, or, you know, we can even get, you know, I remember having a Nintendo 64, and those games were $50 on average in '96. That's equivalent to an $80 game now, you know.
Yeah, considering the console itself was $199.
Yeah,
$140. I can't remember which.
And that's $199. Yeah, for them.
Yeah, that's a quarter of the cost of your console just for one game. So, woof.
Right. Yeah, and you know, we all had a Nintendo, and the Nintendo was $180 when it came out. You know, $179.99, whatever you call it. And games were ranging, I think on average games were about $45. They were probably in $35 to $45 range for that. And when you think about in 1985, how much $45 was equivalent to, it's about $110. So,
oh yeah, if I asked my parents for that kind of money for a game, boy, somebody went to school with a black eye.
I cannot imagine if my kid came up to me and said, "Can I have this game?" and it was $110 now, I'd be like, no.
No.
But you know,
you
things
go
are
in there
different.
And play your PS7 or your Xbox 4850
right.
or what the hell they're going to call it by
But
then.
things are different now too, because I remember when I was younger, you know, I lived with my grandparents when I was younger. My grandpa worked and my grandma didn't. But when she started to go to work in the 80s, when I was younger, they had all this extra discretionary income. So that's how I was able to get like a Nintendo and stuff like that, because it didn't take two people to earn a household income back then. You know, it took one person could pay all the bills and have enough money to pay for groceries and maybe a little discretionary. So then, you know, my grandma started working in the mess hall, and we got, you know, her income was discretionary. So I was able to get a Nintendo and then a Sega and stuff like that when all this stuff started coming out. But nowadays, I guess that kind of leads into why consoles aren't $1,000 now. It's probably because most of us would be like, I don't have $1,000 discretionary income to buy these, and maybe the console market wouldn't be able to keep alive with it. I don't know about you guys, but I often hear stories where when PlayStation and Xbox release, they're losing money on the consoles because they want to keep people for the, you know, the services or the games. You know, that's where they're trying to make their money.
Yes, when most of those consoles from the original Xbox, apparently the original Xbox lost like 60%. to build a base. And 360, PS2, they sold at small losses as well. Now PS3 decided, you know what, we're going to sell for a profit, and look how that turned out for them, because they wanted $600 for that turd.
Well, the PlayStation 3 was $500 when it came out.
Yeah, no, PS3.
Yeah, $500.
Well, they had a $600 version, which is the one I think I wanted. But
I remember the big black
new
piano
consoles are definitely coming out at a loss, because there's no way they can be doing what they're doing at $499, $399. They just, I mean, I'm not a tech person, but I'm pretty sure that's it's a lot more expensive than that.
Well, I mean, just to put that in perspective, the Xbox One was a $500 console, and the Xbox Series X is a $500 console. So,
but you gotta connect.
In 7 years, we didn't get a price increase. So on a console. Now, PlayStation 4 was $100 cheaper than the Xbox One. So I mean, it was so it did get a price increase if you consider the disc versus disc version, a $400 to a $500 console. So we did have a jump there, but it's not like it's an insurmountable jump, and we're talking 7 years. I don't know. Gaming seems expensive, but when you contemplate how much gaming used to cost, it doesn't seem as bad. But you're also not considering the time as we've gone over the course of my lifetime, at least. I'm from 1980 to now, we've gotten to the point to where it takes two people to earn enough money to run a household. Whereas when I was a kid, my grandpa would work and my grandma wouldn't, or my dad would work and my mom wouldn't. So we've come to a point in where inflation has outpaced the cost of living. So the cost of living and the cost of salaries hasn't kept up with inflation. So I think that's probably why we see this huge discrepancy and disparity between what consoles cost back when we were kids versus what they cost now.
Yeah. It's definitely, when you're single, you don't put as much contemplation into those things when it comes to your hobby. But, I've got a, wife and two dang many kids, and I love them to death, but they eat into my gaming money, right. But it's definitely worth it in the long run. But gaming is at that point where the prices are like, man, I'm gonna have to wait till it's on sale, or I'm just gonna have to put it on layaway maybe, And I've never been like that. It used to be when I first started working, bought my own system. Man, I bought all my own systems after that. The only system I didn't buy was the original Nintendo and the Atari. We got the Atari from a yard sale, got the Nintendo for Christmas, me and my brother. And, but ever since then, it's all on me. And it's hard having these kind of hobbies with major expenses besides the hobby.
Well, when I was a kid, we also only had one console in the household. That was everybody's. And nowadays, Shane, how many consoles do you have in your house?
3 Xbox Ones, PS3, PS2, PS4, Nintendo.
Well, let's just talk about current consoles, because we have. Let's say the current gen consoles. How many PlayStations do you have? Do you have just one?
I just have the one PlayStation 4, and then I have a Xbox One, a One S, and a One X.
And do you have a Switch?
Got a Switch too, yep.
Yep. And Nick, how about you? How many consoles do you have of the current gen in your house?
I have one PlayStation. I have 2 Xboxes and 2 Switches.
Right. And I have 2 Xboxes, PS4, and a Switch myself. And then Russ, what do you got?
I just have an Xbox and a PlayStation. I don't need all those other ones. Of course, I don't have any children either. So the need for a Switch and my pretending that I have the Switch for the kids doesn't necessarily, involve me. But I mean, although in truth and honesty, I have thought about buying a Switch. Isabella has a Switch who, for our listeners, is my only and eldest daughter who is out of the house, but she loves Nintendo Switches, and I did purchase that for her gift for her. So, I mean, I guess, subconsciously maybe I have, or not subconsciously, but, just
Can Daddy borrow it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I need to at any time, but that I think I'll let Patrick finish his point, but I've got some thoughts too.
But yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. Is that when I was a kid at my grandma's house, we were lucky. We had 2 TVs. She had one in this like guest living room that we had in the secondary living room, and then one in the living room, in the main living room. And the Nintendo was hooked up to that one. We didn't have. I always remember when we got a new console, the old one went away because I was sure Dad traded in or something to get a new one, because that's just how it worked. I remember begging to get a Game Boy, and my grandma, and was like, well, you got a Nintendo. Why do you need a Nintendo Game Boy? And I'm like, so I can play it remotely, and it was a big deal. It was like a $90 little handheld thing back in the day when they had the old Milton Bradley little monochrome screen games that were like the football and all that stuff,
Oh, yeah.
They were equating it to that when it really wasn't like that. It was, it was the handheld gaming console, but we had one. I remember at any given time I had a Nintendo, and then when I wanted a Sega Genesis, I didn't have a Nintendo because the Nintendo went bye-bye to buy the Sega Genesis, and we became a Sega household at that point because I always had a Sega and then a Sega CD, and then I remember pooling all of my money together for what seemed like forever to buy me a Super Nintendo, and then I convinced my grandma to buy me a Nintendo 64. I did not buy the original PlayStation. I couldn't afford it. I could not afford an original PlayStation when I was a kid. That was $300 when I was 15, and I'm like, I can't afford this. And so, we got a $200 Nintendo 64 instead because it was a little more affordable, But I love my Nintendo 64.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, and then when I got to the point where I can buy my own, I started buying my own. I had the same thing as everybody else, that I had the Sega Dreamcast, and I bought a PS2 and stuff like that. But at that point I was, making my own money. I was working, and I graduated high school when the PS2 came out. So, I could afford that. But, and when I was on my own, I had discretionary income, especially when I was a kid. I was working, and the only thing I had to pay for was my gas, my truck payment, and my insurance on it. My parents didn't make me give them any other money unless I wanted to help out with something. So I could afford to buy the $300 Xbox 360 when it came out, or spend $200 on the GameCube, stuff like that. But you think about it. So when we were a kid, let's say your parents, you wanted a Nintendo. You had to have a $180 Nintendo, and then a TV back then, on average was about $700, which is about $1,500 by today's standards. So it's no slouch. They were still expensive. They were still an expensive type thing if you had a big TV. My grandma had like a big old floor model TV, the big ones that sat on the floor and they didn't go on a stand or anything. Gaming, in my opinion, now looking at all this information, was probably more expensive back then than it is today. It's obviously gotten cheaper and more affordable to the masses, but we also have a cost of living as tipped in the other direction. It costs more to live now than it did back then, and wages haven't really caught up to that. So I think that's probably why gaming seems like it's expensive, but it's no more expensive than it was when we were a kid.
I hope my wife's listening.
Well,
more expensive, honey.
Go ahead, Russ.
Well, what I was going to say is that you're kind of coming around to what my thoughts are. I mean, we are 4 different gamers from almost like we're like one behind the other in generations almost, or at least the split in half. And so, whereas I was, I had a, I was in the Air Force. I had a pretty decent income. The military paid for my house, so or paid for my living. So in 2000, buying a PlayStation 2 was nothing to me really. It wasn't that difficult. So from PlayStation to current consoles, minus the Dreamcast, I owned at least one console of every single one since PlayStation. I owned a PlayStation 1, I owned a Nintendo 64, I owned a PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox 360, Wii, and so forth and so on. I did not have a Wii U. We didn't go to the Wii U. We stayed on the Wii. But, so for that, what I've said, what I'll say about this is that I think gaming has become more accessible because of just because of society in itself. I mean, when you buy an Xbox Series X, when you buy the new Xbox, you are buying a full-blooded media center. You know, you could play all your shows on there. Everything is going to be on that. So it's almost like it's turned into the cable box. You know, whereas you would spend, you know, what, $800, $900 in a month on cable. You know, you do have subscription-based stuff, but you also have that box that comes in the Xbox Series, and you have that media center. I think where it gets us, maybe the three of us in, Nick, Patrick, and myself a little bit more, although I know Shane is trying to catch up with the technology, is computer gaming. We look at a console and we say, okay, look, Xbox came out in 2013. I got 7 solid years of usage out of my Xbox One. I did not go to the One X. So for me, I feel like that was an amazing investment for me in that I paid, you know, $4.99 or $3.99 when it went on sale or whatever it was when I bought the Xbox One, and I've got that much usage out of it for 7 years. Whereas if I had a computer in 2013, within 5 years, I'm going to have to upgrade at least one piece. And then within 7 years, I'm going to have to upgrade at least 2 or 3 pieces if I want to stay competitive with the games that are being released at the same time. So in comparison, I think the console gaming has kept it affordable for the everyday person, whereas the computer gaming, that I think is where the gap is happening. Whereas it might have been a little bit earlier, it was a little bit cheaper earlier, because we remember times where we could get a $100 graphics card that would last us 3 or 4 years. Whereas now, if you get a $100 graphics card, that's just gets you through one game, if you're lucky. And I think that's where that difference is whenever we're talking about the cost of gaming. Computer gaming is expensive when you really look at it. Now, thankfully, we have these Game Pass type subscriptions. We have things like that are making it at least accessible for us to see more games at a more reasonable price. Because, gosh, if we look back at it, I mean, in the height of it, when we're buying a game, trading it in, buying a game, trading in with GameStop, then that's how we were kind of like, quote unquote, saving our money. I guarantee you we still probably pay more in a year on games than we do now in a time of, number one, game sharing, number two, Xbox Game Passes. I think that's my thoughts around it all. I know it's a little bit scattered, but I think that's where we're saving money nowadays, even though it feels like we're not really going anywhere with the price points.
Yeah, I agree with your thoughts on, you know, the whole Game Pass and game sharing thing, because that does. I mean, the four of us been doing game sharing together, you know, for God, how long? I mean, at least 4 years. And absolutely love it. It's a genius way to get more games out there into people's hands that may not have played them before. For one, Nick isn't punishing games that make you, you know, curl up in a fetal position that I'd never buy. But if he buys it, I have the opportunity to play it, so I'm gonna try it out. And no, I still hate those games, but at least I can try them out. You know, I might find that one that says, "Oh my God, yay!" and I don't have to waste a bunch of money to do that. And that's a great thing. Game Pass is an amazing deal, and I would love to see Nintendo and Sony follow suit, you know, with something like that on their own. I don't see it happening, especially with Nintendo.
We had Game Pass when I was a kid. It was called Blockbuster. I'm sure it was the same as everybody when we were all kids. We had a very rigid schedule when I was a kid. Friday nights was always the same thing. It was pizza and movie night. Dad would get off work and he'd pick up me and my brother, and we would go we'd go by Blockbuster and then get a pizza and come home. And I can always remember when we were in Blockbuster, holding my tongue until we got in there and been like, "Dad, can we get a game?" You know, and sometimes we'd get one and sometimes we wouldn't. But you know, I think probably 90% of the time we were allowed to get a game because games were like twice the cost of a movie to rent one back in the day. that was our Game Pass when I was a kid. You get to spend I think it was $5. I think it was like $4.99 to rent a game for the weekend. So we would get a game. We'd get a game like every weekend, if not 3 out of the 4 weekends. So that was our $15 right there. We got 3 games to try because we didn't get a new game every week or anything like that. I think we were lucky to get a new game once a month if we were lucky. If we were lucky when I was a kid. So that was our Game Pass as a kid. But Game Pass now is definitely what saves me from having to buy my kid a game all the time because she's all over the place and she plays everything and anything that comes to Game Pass all the time. So that's kind of how it's been cost effective for me. But I don't know about you guys, but I'm a bargain gamer now. I think when I was younger, I paid a lot more to game than I do now. And I don't know how that works because I'm making more money now in my life than I've made when I was that age. But I felt like I was buying a new game every week when I was young and single. It seemed that way when I was young and single and just paying rent. I split rent 3 ways with me and 2 roommates, in like a $600 a month, 3-bedroom duplex, so I was paying $200 a month for rent and paid for food and my gas and insurance and truck payment. I blew a lot of money on gaming. I remember buying a $2,500 TV to play games on. It was like a Sony Grand Vega back in the day and buying a new console when I wanted it. And now I'm like, I had to budget to buy that $500 Xbox Series X, So I felt like I gamed a lot more when I was a kid, or I could afford to game. Because now I feel like I got to pinch my pennies to game. I don't know about you guys. How do you guys feel about now versus then?
I think it's a two-way street on that. Also, while you were there paying for those $60 games every paycheck or whatever, you get like 1 good game a month or maybe 2 good games in a quarter or half a year. And then you realize, holy crap, I just spent like $400 on garbage games. And so, I think that it's kind of like, it's like a marriage or when you meet women or something like that. It's like, you get too many women that just aren't the same as what you're liking, and you end up kind of like, I think I'm going to stop dating for a while, or I'm going to stop, doing whatever for a while, because now you're like, okay, look, if I'm going to spend $60, this game better be Ghost of Tsushima level. It better be that. If I'm going to spend $60 of my hard-earned money and put my time into it, it better be a good game, because we've been fried so many times, or we've been lied to so many times on good games that we end up saying to ourselves, okay, look, if I'm going to spend $60, this better be a good game because I'm not getting tricked again. And I think now it's to the point where we don't feel like we're being tricked on a $40 game, but definitely on a 60, and especially once it goes to 70. When we get to 70 price point, we're going to be very particular with what games we buy.
Well,
yeah,
I don't know.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I was younger, and like I said, when I was single and I was working, I remember buying a $60 game and not caring that it was that bad. I would buy it and be like, okay, I wasted my money on this, and I would just trade it in at GameStop or EB Games back in the day and be like, oh, this $60 game wasn't worth it. Let me go get my $40. We'll get my $30 to $40 from trade-in credit from EB Games or GameStop and get a new game with the next week. And I did that a lot. And I had an Xbox and a Dreamcast and all that stuff. And back in the day, I even modded my Xbox because I wasn't worried that I'd have to buy another $300 console. Nowadays, I don't even look at that thing sideways. I'm like, I can't afford to buy another $500 console, So I don't know. Part of it may be because life changes. Obviously, now I have a household and a family that I have to think about. But back in the day, it was just me for myself. But I make way more money now than I did as that age of a kid. But I gamed like it was going out of style back then. I mean, I played WoW. I had a PC, I had a TV, I had gaming consoles, I had new games all the time. And I remember playing WoW with all my friends and paying the $15 a month subscription and finding out a bunch of our friends had picked WoW back up and were on a different server. And I remember dropping a ton of money so I could transfer my characters over to their server they were on. What character transfers were like $15, and if you wanted a faction transfer, it was another $5. And I remember one time going, well, crap, my friends are over here, and I want to transfer these 3 characters. 3 characters, $20 a pop. I basically paid for the game to transfer my 3 characters. You know, I wouldn't think twice about it. I wouldn't even do that nowadays. I wouldn't even give it a second thought. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'll just start something new if I was playing WoW still. So, you know, obviously times have changed and my priorities in life have changed, but I still don't figure I still don't think if I wanted to, I could buy a new game a week and get away with it financially.
No, definitely not. But, you know, one thing, I'll go back to what Russ said. You said, drop $60, it's going to have to be Ghost of Tsushima quality. And I think that's one thing that, you know, the gamers should demand. If we're going to go to $70, we should expect $70 worth. Not this half-finished garbage they shoot out to you, and then they give you a patch that's bigger than the damn game. And then it's still broken. It's still garbage. For $70, I want Ghost of Tsushima quality all day, every game. And that's my biggest problem with the quality of the games going up. It used to be, and I don't know if just because, you know, I couldn't afford to buy a new game after new game after new game, but, you know, when I bought a game on the Nintendo, it was a great game. I bought a new game on 64 or PlayStation or Sega. You know, it was a great game. But once 360 PS3 got about halfway through the era and you started getting more downloadable games and more updated games, it seems like the quality of the game has dropped. So I don't think $70 is right if we're not getting the same quality game that we've gotten before that was actually finished.
I think another thing that comes into play too, and this is something that Russ said, is that, you know, back then there was, you know, when games came out too, you know, I think back then when games came out, we got a good game that was worth your money, you know, ever so often, right? It wasn't like, I mean, nowadays it seems like there's always something around the corner that I want to play. Whereas back then it was like, you know, the Super Nintendo or Sega, Nintendo 64, it'd be like Mario 64 come out, and then a couple months later, or, you know, or give or take, it'd be Wave Race 64, and that'd be maybe the next one you want. Or even on the PlayStation, you know, a Mega Man or a Castlevania or Metal Gear comes out, and then, you know, it's not until, PlayStation 2 where Metal Gear 2 comes out, and then, you know, so we had these gaps in time where these big games that we really wanted were spaced out pretty well. I think nowadays it's, you know, like I said, it's pretty much every single time we talk about it, you know, we've discussed this amongst ourselves of like, hey, you know, what's coming out soon? You know, not really anything. And then we like name off like 5 games and they're all coming out in the next like couple months or so. And the next thing you know, we're 60 pop, you know, a piece down the line for each of these games coming out. And then, you know, because usually before during the summer was the dead time, you know, where basically nothing would come out. You would have a few scragglers here and there, and that was it. And then during the fall time is when all the games would come out around Christmas and things like that. And now it seems like even through the summer, we're getting games that we all want to play. And so I think that also affects our spending habits as far as that goes, you know, wanting to having to buy more games. There's kind of a good and a bad of it. We have a good, you know, category of games to play, but now we don't have enough time to play them.
Yeah, I agree with everything there.
Right. I mean, I guess part of it, like I said, part of that it does hold true, but I find that I game frugally now. I mean, I'm always waiting for the Steam sale. I'm always waiting for the Epic Game Store sale or the PlayStation Store or even the Xbox game deals. I find myself always hounding those for deals. And the only time I ever purchase anything new is that, and then when I say new, I mean $60, is when it's just got amazing reviews, or I'm so hyped about it, or one of you guys picks it up and is like, it's a great game, and then I'm like, okay, I can spend my $60 and do it. Even when a game's $40, you know, I find it hard to buy sometimes brand new because I'm usually waiting for that game to be 20 or 30, and that seems to be where my sweet spot is. $20 to $30 for a game is what I'll usually spend on something I really want. Like, perfect example is Maneater. I don't know if you guys played it, But that game came out, I think it was $45 when it came out. It was a cheaper game, and I wanted to play it. It looked pretty funny, looked pretty awesome. I waited until it went on sale, even though it was still only a $40 game. I think I spent $30 on it or something like that, and it was a really good game. I felt it was worth the money that I spent for it. But I'm a very budget conscious gamer nowadays, and I pay $15 a month for Game Pass for me, and I pay $15 a month for Game Pass for my kid. Actually, I think I pay hers to the 10 because she doesn't need the Ultimate. She doesn't have PC, so I spend 10 for hers and 15 for mine. So I spend $25 a month on gaming automatically, and I don't have any MMOs that I pay subscriptions to or anything like that right now. So really, my gaming expense is on average $25 a month. And back when I was a kid, though, back when I was younger, my gaming expenditures would very easily probably be $100 a month, easy, because I would spend $15 a month for WoW, and then I was spending $15 a month to play EVE or Final Fantasy, and I would keep both subscriptions running at the same time or whatever new game was going on, and then I'm always at GameStop or EB Games buying or transferring or, buying and selling games. So I guarantee you I probably spent 30% of my discretion, 30% of my income on gaming when I was a kid, and now I bet I don't even spend 1% of my income on gaming.
Yeah, but you got to remember though, your gaming is still, and I think it's for all of us. I mean, that's why we're here right now. Is it's a big part of who we are, but we also have put other things ahead of it. I mean, we put our children. Even, Russ, even though yours is, grown up and moved out, you still got to prioritize her over a game, and we all do that. We all, Nick don't even like his kids, but he gonna prioritize them. But yeah, I mean, it's because we've found things that are important. We've created things that are important that we have to put over that. I put my home, my car, my work, my wife, my kids, before my gaming addictions. Don't get me wrong, if I could get rid of the wife and the kids and the dog and the cars, I would, and just play the games. But, they'll kill me, so I keep them. But, it's what we've prioritized in our lives ahead of the games. And that's why, you went from 30 to 40% to 1%. Nick is still at 30% though.
I will, I made the comment about that. I will also admit though that I probably play more games now than I had when I was younger because of Game Pass and stuff like that, and like Humble Bundles and Steam sales. Because I don't know if it's because I'm more patient or like Nick said, there's just too much coming at us at any given time. Because there's plenty of times where I'm hyped about a game, but then I'm not hyped enough for $60 and I'll forget about it. And I won't notice it for a year or even 2 years sometimes later, and I see it on like a Steam sale or an Epic Game sale or Game Pass or something, and I'm like, oh, I gotta play that. So my library for Steam and Epic and even Origins, the all hated Origins from EA, I have a good sized library of games that I haven't played. But I do play a lot of games now, but I spend a lot less, I guess I should say, than I did when I was younger. And to me, it just seems like gaming is an expensive hobby. We talked about a few podcasts ago about VR, and I want to play VR, but I can't afford to get into that hobby. But, I do feel, I don't know about you guys, do you feel you play more games now or before? Nick, how do you feel? Do you think you play more games now or less than you did when you were younger?
I don't know. I played a lot when I was a kid. So I would say probably, if I were to really think about it, I'd probably say less now. And that's just because, as a kid, the only priority I had was going to school, right? And doing my homework. Other than that, I was just gaming the entire time. Maybe play with friends and stuff, but a lot of my friends when I was younger were gamers too, so we just play video games as well. So, nowadays I do play a lot of games still, but I have other priorities. I have kids, like Shane said, kids, house, job, those things that you have to do when you're an adult. So, much of my free time does go toward gaming, if I'm not doing something with the kids or work or whatever. So I try to get in as much gaming as I possibly can, but I think if I would really think about it, probably play less nowadays just because of those factors than when I was younger. What about you, Shane?
Definitely play less. Before the marriage and kids and all of that, what I do, I went to work, I played games. That was my life. I was just content as could be. That's not to say I'm bothered by my life. I love, my wife and kids, but I don't play as much. And even if I take just a day off, just to play a game and just relax, take some me time. Hey, well, since you're off, you got to do this, you got to do that. It sucks, but it is what it is, and I really wouldn't change anything, except for maybe get a few extra days off.
Okay, so and Russ, what about you?
I mean, I play quite a bit less than I used to. I mean, priorities have changed in life, but and not only that, but like, I'm going to be honest, the quality of gaming to me has affected my gameplay. If there was more games that were more enjoyable to me, I may play more because I do have a little bit more time, but I think priorities have altered that along with the gaming venue or the gaming atmosphere, whatever you want to do now. Every developer, every place is in for a quick buck. Giving them $40, even giving them $40 for an okay game is infuriating from time to time when, I could think about all the donuts that I could buy with that $40 or something like that might give me a greater amount of time of pleasure than a $40 game. I kid, but like, that's just my point though, is that I think because of the way that the games have come around to being less thought out, less thoughtful, we do have our superstars from time to time, but not near what we used to. I mean, I just think of like just back in 1999. I mean, we're looking at a time where technology was a third, a quarter, 1/8 of what we have now, and we had games in 1999 like Silent Hill, Siphon Filter, Counter-Strike. Half-Life was a year old at this point, I think. Like all those games had come out, and like we would lose a month, 2 months playing those games, and now we're like we get a game done in a week. We're like, okay, never go back again. And so I think that those two things for myself play factors: the fact that the games aren't very thought out, and then obviously my priorities as I become a not as old of a man as Shane change a little bit.
Oh man.
So I think there's probably a discrepancy in the way that I look at this than that you guys did. When I say play more, I mean like not necessarily time spent playing. I mean like playing titles. Like, do you think you play more titles now than you played back when you were younger? Because when I was younger, when I was a kid, or when I got old enough to buy my own games, and when I had my roommates, I worked a job where I worked 3 12-hour shifts and a 6-hour shift. So basically I would go in Friday at 6 p.m. and work till 6 a.m. and do the same thing on Saturday and Sunday, or Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and then Monday I would go in at 6 p.m. and get off at midnight, and I wouldn't have to go back to work until Friday at 6. So I played, I played games, but I would buy that game and I would just play it to its fruition until it's finished, or I was enthralled in WoW, or I was enthralled in whatever the current MMO is at the time. So while I would buy a lot of games, I would play those 4 games for the month. I would play those 4 titles, whereas like now, I find that in a month I play a lot more titles. I may not play them to fruition, but because of the market and everything that's out there, this month's a little bit different because Microsoft has that achievement thing going on where you can do the Hall of Fame thing. I played a lot, but on average I'm probably playing 2 to 3 different games a week because of Game Pass, or because I got an Epic Game Sale, or Humble Bundle, or I bought like a package off of Xbox or PlayStation. So I'm probably playing in a given week 3 to 4 different games, not to their completion, but playing different titles. So that's what I kind of meant by playing more. I'm playing more different games, not more time spent gaming. Because I do think I don't play as much as I did when I was younger. Because, like I said, I would basically when I was a kid and I worked for a trucking company, so I worked, like I said, 3/12s and a 6. I would go in at 6 p.m., get off at 6 a.m., eat, shower, sleep for a few hours, play a little bit of games, and I would do that until Monday night when I got off at midnight. But then I would stay up and game until Friday. I would game until Friday at like noon, and then I would stop and I would sleep for 6 hours and do rinse repeat kind of stuff.
So with that, then my answer is the same answer, but reversed. And how does that mean? Yes, I play a lot more titles now, but because the quality of games aren't what they used to be, not because I have more time or less time or anything like that. I think that's where I'm ended up playing more titles because there's not as many titles that are really catching my focus. If we look over the last 5 years, the only couple of titles that we truly go back to, and kind of play a little bit on would be, whatever MMO is the MMO, and then something like Destiny or Siege, and be like, oh, there's a new patch, there's a new DLC coming out, so let's give that a shot. Beyond that, we're playing something new constantly. I mean, anything from Uno to Uncooked to whatever the newest multiplayer game is, Avengers, we had to give that a shot, but yet again, there was a game there that you have four white guys who love freaking Marvel. We all love Marvel. We all have our favorite characters. We all have that should be a shoe-in to take our money for at least a couple of months. At least. But again, developers, producers, game makers, they fail us time and time again. I think that's why we are playing so many titles now versus, when we were younger, because like you said, you just said it kind of yourself, Patrick. You said, I would buy, I'd be playing WoW and then you'd be playing a console game and then you might have another like Eve or something in the background. So you had only 3 games that you were playing at that time. You were playing twice as much because they were solid, great games. Whereas now you're taking 4 games just to make up for the 1 game that you had in the past.
Right. Nick,
yeah, you got a point.
Shane, what about you? How do you feel on that topic?
Well, I can say I still probably play. I play less, but I play more variety than I ever did growing up. I mean, I was a platformer person for the longest time, and then I developed into RPGs at the PlayStation 1 era. That was when I really started loving RPGs. First-person shooters I didn't really get into till the Xbox, came out. Halo, got me hooked in on that. And now, because of Game Pass and game sharing, I play more variety of games. But I still don't play the quantity I used to play or the amount of time that I used to play. But Russ is right, though. The quality of games since 360, really, PS3 era, about halfway through that has really, the quality has dwindled down in a lot of ways. Some games come out that are just so amazing. And then the vast majority of them are crap or unfinished, Look how excited we were for Anthem. It should and could have been an amazing game, but it wasn't because it was half-assed by EA. It was, just tossed out there, and that was
EA
it.
bashing alert, EA bashing alert.
Yep, and I'll do it every day because they suck. But then you get the quality games, Control, Alan Wake, and I'm just knocking off some of, the ones that I truly enjoyed. Ghost of Tsushima. Then you get those rarities, those gems and a pile of turds that just shine, that are amazing. but I don't get to play those very often. I mean, Russ is right. I will quit more games now than I complete because of quality and because I'm not going to pay a bunch of money to play crap. I'm not going to pay $70 for a game unless I know that game is going to be solid. I mean, I'm going to get my every single penny out of.
So kind of similar, but yeah, I mean, I understand your thoughts on that. Nick, what do you think? With it flipped, like what I mean is, do you think you play more different titles now than you did back then, or do you still think that you played more and more different games back then?
Yeah, I think I probably play a lot more variety of different games nowadays, and just like Russ and Shane said, the thing that also factors into it is there's a lot of games. We get a lot more games now. With Game Pass and stuff, we have a lot more variety, but there's a lot of games that are not very good, right? We get a lot of crap games compared to the ones that are really good games. But as far as variety go, I play all sorts of different titles now, and I think Game Pass really helps with that. There's a lot of games on Game Pass, especially that I wouldn't even give a second, chance to, or even a first look. And then I've just said, I'll try this out and installed it and found out it's a really good game.
Tractor Simulator.
Yeah, Farming Simulator.
Farming Simulator, yeah. We had stupid fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Carrion, the one with the monster who plays the monster, that was a lot of fun. Me and Patrick, because of the Hall of Fame thing that's going on, where you get 10,000 gamer points, gamer score. We played a lot of games that we probably never would have played. The Gardens Between Us, I think it was. That one, it's like a puzzle kind of reverse time game. And, I beat that one recently and got all the gamer points, and I know Patrick did too. And that wasn't it wasn't a super great game, but it was a pretty cool little puzzle game, and it's not that long. So, I've seen that game has been on there on Game Pass forever, and I probably would have never played it, but because of this, I did, because you can get easy achievements, and playing through it, I was like, hey, this kind of fun, and some of the puzzles kind of, tripped me up for a minute, trying to figure out how to get through them, but,
right.
Yeah, I'd say I definitely play more variety nowadays than I did back then.
Yep. So yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's the truth. I mean, the time between like the big titles that we're used to playing is pretty sparse. I mean, can you think of a game? So upcoming for me is Cyberpunk. I don't have anything else on my radar that's like I'm buying brand new outside of Cyberpunk. And for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's Cyberpunk. And before that, it was Ghost of Tsushima. So how long is the gap between that? There's months in between there before I'm buying something that's on release date. Yes, we bought Squadrons, but that happens a lot to us where we get hyped about a game and then it falls flat. So what I wanted to say about that was, do you think that the amount of game or the quality of gaming is the reason that the demo is dead? Because you don't get game demos anymore. Hardly anything, you don't get a game demo of it. Because that used to be back in the day how I would determine if I'm going to buy a game. I remember getting the PlayStation disc from Pizza Hut. You remember you get pizza and you get the little PlayStation demo disc, or you would get PC Magazine and they would come with a demo disc, a disc full of demos. You don't get anything like that. It's a rarity to find a game that puts out a demo now. And I honestly feel it's because of exactly what you guys said. The quality of gaming has gone downhill so much that these game developers can't, if they were to give you a demo of it, you probably wouldn't buy it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at a game like Anthem. It had everything that we wanted. 4-player co-op. Visuals were really nice. The concept of the game itself is right up our alley. All four of us could agree that's something we could play. That's something we could all enjoy. Now, all that had to be done was make the game complete, make the game solid. Throw a demo out, though, there's no way we would have bought it.
I don't really think
we would have.
I don't know.
Because
I think I would have bought Anthem.
Because we wouldn't. I mean, I think what killed it for Anthem
was Endgame.
it was the end game. So a demo, I think we would have been like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I wonder how this expands. And,
Yeah, but Nick,
and what we found is it really doesn't, right?
yeah, but
we
Nick,
wouldn't have known
you were complaining about repetitiveness at the
Yeah, but you
third
still wouldn't
mission.
get that out of a demo. A demo would more than likely be one mission, and that's all you would get.
So here's a perfect example. Let's say that there was a demo of Squadrons. I would honestly say we probably wouldn't do that. If Squadrons put out a demo, and the demo was a fleet battle, and we knew that was the main point of co-op, we probably wouldn't have bought that one.
No, I would agree.
It depends on what the demo.
If
Again,
the demo
it
was
depends
fleet
on what
battles.
the demo portrays, right? Yeah, exactly. If it was fleet battles, then more likely a demo for Squadrons would probably be like the first mission in the single player campaign, right? That's
Right.
probably what they would have put out. Because you got to think of demos too. They structure the best works in the demo, right? They're not going to give you that crap level or some stupid portion that they know is not going to be that, well received. So they're going to give you like the best mission in the game, or maybe the first mission, which is kind of the tutorial that kind of teaches the game, or something like that. Because the demo is there, back in the day, is there to sell you that game, right? And it also depends on how well the demo is. But yeah, demos are a dying breed. You don't ever hardly see a demo. I remember back on the 360, that was one of Microsoft's things, is you had to have a demo with every game that came to Xbox, or at least, yeah, I'm pretty sure every game that came to Xbox had to have a demo. So there was a demo for pretty much just about every game. I think they, some of the bigger titles, they kind of like said, okay, that's fine, but if they didn't have one, but it was kind of one of their rules, and that rule went out the window. But I think the quality of games, and I think the amount of games, and also, it maybe it factors into it, and it maybe not, but development costs and things like that, because it takes to put a demo out. It's just, from my understanding, it's not like just sectioning off a portion of your game. It's basically taking out that section of the game and making a demo. So you have to have a separate team where that team has to take the time to create the demo to put out there. So then you have the extra cost, which I think a lot of companies just don't want to put into it. They just throw it out there and hope it sticks. Right.
Russ, what about you? Your thoughts on the demo?
The demo is a lost art. My gosh, I mean, how many games back in the day did we demo that we'd bought because they were fantastic? Or even, I mean, I guess, like, do you think, or do we think as a whole that, like these betas that come out, they're kind of the demo, like it's almost like a false demo, like, well, we're going to give you this beta, but, we know it's broke, but here's your little demo for the beta. And it's like, well, you want to make a fair assessment within the bugs that the game has, but you're still baiting a game to know if you want to buy it. I mean, Avengers is a perfect example of that. I think the demo is a dying breed for sure, but I don't know if every demo I got 100% made the decision for me. I mean, I just keep coming back and keep thinking about how, like, was it, like, I'm trying to ask myself, was it that during these games, in this time these games came out, like from 1999 to 2008, was it because that was such a heightened peak of new games? Everything is new. Every genre is kind of changing, Then we get into 2008 and the open world kind of starts to kick in. And then 2010, the open world gets a little bit better. And then now we get it to where the last 4 years, everything seems to be open world, and maybe one out of every four really do it right. The most recent Assassin's Creed was one that we really liked, although it was excessive. I mean, it got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm kind of done. I've done the same mission for the last 6 months, so I'm good now. I mean, that's what I look back at. I look back and think about it to myself, like, what games have I played more than just 3 weeks? What could have gotten me to keep them playing them for 3 weeks? I don't think a demo would have made a factor in that decision on whether I played the game. So what really is the issue? I think the issue is playability beyond the 3 weeks, or the 2 weeks, or the review time for us right now. I mean, I think the review time for us is actually helping us play a variety more of games because we want to make sure that we make a good review for our listeners. And so we need to make sure that we play that game even if we don't like it. Whereas now, if we didn't have that, like you said, you said in a previous podcast, hey, I would have quit Mafia had it not been for the fact that we're reviewing. Well, that's where we would be at right now. We would be just trying game after game after game and hoping and praying that one would be okay. Or we see a game that we kind of like, we're like, well, let's just wait to see if it gets on Game Pass. So I rambled a little bit there, but the long story of it, I do miss the demo, but I do believe that most of the responsibility is on the developers to give us games as consumers that are worth buying.
Yeah, but that's why they stopped doing a demo, because they know, they're pushing more turds than they are pushing polish, and they don't want people to see that. They still want to make that, and a lot of it I blame on Nintendo for all that shovelware for the Wii. They just kept throwing garbage out and garbage out and garbage out, and it's like, you know what? I'm done wasting my money. So when they go to raise these prices to $70, they're not going to get mine unless it's that game that I know dang well is going to be $70 worth. I mean, Cyberpunk. If you told me that game's going to be $70, you know what? Here's my 70. I know they've got the quality. I know they've got the history. And, and there's nothing I've seen that makes me go, oh no, maybe it's not going to be great. That's definitely no qualms about that. Now look at the next Call of Duty. I always enjoy the stories of the Call of Duty. The multiplayer's been pretty generic here the last few, but always enjoyed the stories. I ain't paying $70 for it though. None of their stories in the last 3 games have been worth $70. Period.
Right.
I think Pat asked a minute ago, so Cyberpunk's coming up, so we all 4 of us on more than one occasion have said, now that game, absolutely a purchase first day. And then he said, well, what's the next one? The only next one that I can think of remotely would be, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I mean, that would be it. And luckily those two are kind of close together, but then for the holiday season, these games are coming out prior to the holiday season, and that's what we have to look forward to. I can't think of anything else to look forward to.
Well, you know what? Go ahead, Pat.
Shane, would you pay $70 for Valhalla?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
No, because Assassin's Creed, Assassin's Creed really lost its way, in my opinion. I think they've taken a road I don't like. I think 2 was their prime. I think 3 was great with testing new stuff. But I think they've taken it too far. I do not like the open world. I'm sorry. I do not like the vast amount of open world. I
would say that I think Odyssey is their best one in my opinion. But
that's the thing. A lot of people love how they've transitioned from where they were at 2 and 3 to Odyssey. They love how it became this slightly stealth action game to this open world story-driven RPG. And that's really what it is now. Valhalla looks really interesting, but I'm going to bet $1 it's going to suck. I really do. I really think the Valhalla is going to blow chunks.
Well,
I think there's too much writing on it, and I think they're going to blow.
I will tell you this, though. The Assassin's Creed games aren't day one buys for me. They have not been ever, because they are very generic. I will say Odyssey was my favorite, but Odyssey was also one of the ones I bought in the complete edition type packaging. I didn't buy it as a day one game, and I will probably not, unless I'm extremely bored. Now, I will say this. I do impulse buy on games when I'm bored. So if it's a weekend and I have nothing to do and I'm looking at my game list going, I don't want to play any of these, I will buy impulse buys. And Valhalla is going to be out around the holiday season. If I'm off work and I'm bored, I may do that one, but I'm hoping Cyberpunk will fill my time, with that. But, we kind of got off on the tangent there. Back to the demo thing. I think demos are gone. I very rarely see a game on Steam that has a demo. Most of the time now they want you to pay for a demo. When I say pay for a demo, they're like, pay this discounted price for early access, and I hate that to no end because it just drives me nuts. But I think demos are gone for one of two reasons. Obviously because publishers are not in love with what they're putting out anymore. And the second is that when we had demos, media on games wasn't as easily accessible as it is now. Because I remember being a kid, your gaming information, nobody's going to sit around a 56K modem waiting to download a video of a gameplay trailer, or a picture. So you had access. Gaming media was basically restricted to like commercials on TV and magazines. And so you had to get those demo discs to play. But I still remember downloading demos from the internet, just take all day or all night or something like that. But I do think that games are getting away from that, because a perfect example is we all have hated on the Avengers game to no end, but we gave it a chance. They had the opportunity to change our minds. Like, we were anti-Avengers, and they came out with the open beta, and we're like, here's your chance to find out if we really have to buy this game. If it's just the best game around, we're going to cave and buy it. All four of us came away with, it's okay. I don't have to have this game.
And it's a game I think we'll end up picking up at a few months down the road
$20.
when its price is dropped and they've got some content for it. Because it's not a terrible game. It's just not a $60 game. It's a game of service that I'm paying too damn much money for up front.
So yeah, I think that's what the game demos are gone. But we're creeping into the market where a bunch of developers, which our favorite that we hate, EA, is stepping out with $70 games. A bunch of them are trying it, but I think EA was the first to say, hey, this game's going to be $70.
Well, that's because it's EA and they're nothing but a blood-sucking company that does not care about the medium of video games anymore.
Right.
It's disgusting.
But yeah, so I mean, demos have gone the wayside to early access, and now I feel nowadays the way that game companies deal with that, when you start talking about demos, they're like, well, we have open betas, but that to me is a problem in itself. You're saying, if I want to try your game, I have to make myself available between this window of time to try your game when you're stress testing it.
Not to mention, they say you have to pre-order it to get into the damn beta.
Right, or they just open it to everybody, but it's stress testing, so you're getting the game at its worst, to do that, so it kind of reminds me of the old joke about the cable company. We'll be at your house between Monday 8 a.m. and Thursday 8 p.m. So be waiting, and that's how I felt like they say, hey, if you want to try our game, be on between 8 a.m. Monday and 8 p.m. on Thursday, and you might get to try it as long as it's not too buggy. So, they basically are hurting the game. I honestly would try a little bit more stuff if I could get a demo of some things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
If I could try a demo of Valhalla, it may change my mind to be a day one game, but for me, it's not a day one game right now. I will check and see if hopefully it goes on sale by Christmas and try it. If not, then it'll be after the first of the year game for me, as long as Cyberpunk holds out for me and keeps my attention. I don't know. Or we end up talking it out and we have nothing to review, and we end up having to review Valhalla, and I'll have to buy it reluctantly.
Ooh, that's going to be a tough buy.
Right. So, gaming is expensive, and talking amongst you guys, I do feel that we've come into a point where games are it is becoming a lot of shovelware. It's just like, what can I put out that'll net me $5, that'll net me $20 or something like that. We have a lot of that. It seems like nowadays indie game makers are basically the way to go. They put out a lot of cool stuff that's around $20 to $30, and you get lots of really cool titles.
Yeah.
So they seem to be the guys to go after, and they're the cheaper. So if they can put out these great games and great concepts for $30, what are these companies like EA doing to where they can't make it and they need $70 a game? Is there really that much more development time into Call of Duty that it needs to be $70 versus these awesome games that cost $40?
Yeah, it's down to the greed factor. And it breaks my heart to see EA, Activision, those companies that own amazing studios. Amazing. and they burn them. They ruin their reputations by being greedy and pushing out crap that ain't done and ready, raking prices up. You know, the packages of crap you got to buy. If you buy this chest, you can do this, this, and this, and it's ridiculous. You know, that's why if I see a game that's from EA, it breaks my heart, because there's an 80% chance that it's going to be crap. It really is.
Riddled with microtransactions.
riddled with microtransactions in my crap.
All right. So, I mean, the cost of gaming, I guess, is always a subjective thing. It's the cost of one person is not there, but it is for another person. You know, I'm a very big bargain gamer, but I also play just about everything under the sun, not as much as Nick does. Nick plays everything. If it says video game, Nick has played it or is going to play it.
Yeah, there ain't nothing he ain't going to touch.
Right. You know, but I have standards. They're just a little bit higher than Nick's. But I'm also a bargain gamer. I think Nick probably buys a lot more newer titles than I do. And I can wait. Because, I mean, especially having kids that play as much games as Nick's do, he's buying a lot more newer stuff than I am. And you guys are a lot more of like a Nintendo fan than I am. I actually haven't bought the new Mario Sunshine, the remake, you know?
Oh. Yeah, that one you can hold off on. I'm not going to lie.
But, you know,
after March.
Yeah, supposedly it's going away after March. But
I'll sell you mine.
But like I said, you know, I guess it's subjective in whatever way you want to look at it. I mean, if we consider what I spent then versus what I spend now, it's less, and it just seems like I have less to show for what I spend money on and game on.
Well, it's hard not to. It's hard not to be tighter with your money now because of all the crap that could be out, you know, that you could be buying instead of a quality game, because they push so much garbage out anymore. You got to be frugal. You got to wait and let people get their thoughts out of there, so you can go, all right, well, 400 people said this game sucks, but well, then I'm not getting it.
Well, I'd also admit, too, one thing is different now than was in the past was, you know, I don't trade in games anymore. I buy digital on most everything. So I guess I don't get to play. I don't get to buy as much because I don't have that opportunity anymore. I don't go pick up a game and play it for a week or two and then trade it in for half of what I paid for it. So I have, you know, so that $60 game really costs me $30 as I buy into another one. And then I put another $30 with that, and I buy this new game, and then I trade it back in for $30 in stored credit. You know, that cycle of, you know, investing $30 in a game really is what it is, but you know, you don't have anything to show for it. You're losing $30 a week. Whereas now I have a library of games because they're all digital. PlayStation is the only thing I don't really do that on. PC is almost all digital anymore for me with Steam and Origin and Epic. And then Microsoft Store just makes it too hard to go, that game is $20 on the Xbox Store, and it's still $40 if I go to GameStop, or $50 if I go to GameStop. So I guess
it is GameStop,
right? And I guess it is in a sense that I probably, you know, I'd have to take a long hard look at what I spend versus what I used to spend, because now when I buy a $60 game, I can't trade it in. So really, I spent $60 on that game rather than the $30 to trade in new cash. So I guess, like I said, it's subjective to anybody, you know. To me, gaming is still worth it, even as much as I spend or as little as I spend now. I mean, I will admit, I pre-ordered a new Xbox, and if I could have gotten a hold of a PlayStation, I would have pre-ordered one of those as well.
Same here.
You know. So, you know, it's just we couldn't get a hold of one. But like I said, it's subjective. I do like video games, new and old. I still like going into like Game World and by Shane's house to go look at some of the old stuff. I don't spend as much money or hardly any money, but I still like to go in there and just peruse and have lots of memories of games that I used to play, you know. So it's subjective. So do you guys have anything else you want to add on the topic of like the cost of gaming, on a subject that you want to bring out, or maybe something else you want to touch on?
I think we pretty much hit everything that makes us upset. I mean, I just want to see the quality for the price. I mean, if they want to charge me $70, they better come over here and wash my damn truck before I pay $70 for an untested game.
Bring back the
That's
demo.
all I want. Exactly. Give me a demo. Especially now that you got a cross-gen, we're in that cross-gen phase of consoles. Give me a cross-gen demo. So I can play it now. I can go, hey, you know what? I'm going to wait for it to come out on the 1S or the Series X. Jesus, I hate Microsoft's naming conventions. The Series X, or play it on my regular X, or on the PS4 to the PS5. Right now is a perfect time for those damn demos. But that's all I got to say about it.
Nick, anything from you?
The $70 price point is, I think of it as like, give us a reason why they need to be $70, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of the jump in price? The cost of living is not catching up with inflation. And so, games are $70 or going to be $70. And, what's that $70 for? What's that extra $10 going towards, right? I doubt it's going towards the developers and stuff. The actual, workers that are making the game, they're probably not getting a price, a paycheck increase because of it. So what's that extra $10? And when you really think about it, more than likely it's just greed, right? They figure with a new generation they can get away with jumping the price up, and that's just what they're going to do. And really gamers need to, if they don't like it, they need to show that with their wallets, with not buying these games. But what's going to happen is more than likely they're going to go out and they're going to buy these $70 games, and it's going to become the normal price for most games, and that's just how it's going to be. But then you got to think of as well as where's the limit, right? Where does that stop? How high of a price of the game can we go when the next generation comes out? Are we going to increase it another $10 and now they're $80 games or $90 games or $100 games? When does that price get to the point where it doesn't need to increase anymore? Or does it always need to increase after a while? Right. And again, why does it need to increase? These developers, it's not like they have to go out and buy new hardware because the next generation's coming out. I'm sure they've already had this hardware and stuff that can, they already have dev kits and things. They don't need to, it's not like they're in, we need this money to invest. And invest in what? You have the capability to make games for these systems. So it's not like you're having to repurpose your entire warehouse to make these games.
Right.
So, it's understandable when they went from cartridges to CDs, right? Of course, those went down in price, but, warehouses that manufacture cartridges had to spend a lot of money to change over to CD-based games. But here it's just a justification that the next generation's coming out. So they're like, it's been enough time, we can go ahead and increase the price and no one's going to say anything about it.
Right. Yeah. And physical media is becoming less and less of a thing anyway. So everybody's just coding to digital now, and the majority of sales are digital.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. The majority of the sales are digital, so they're already knocking a crap ton of price off of stamping, discs. So there's no reason for the $70, in my opinion, just none.
Well,
I mean, except for I want money, money, money.
It would be one thing if they said, okay, the game's $70 and we're going to stop microtransactions. That's one thing. But we know what's going to happen. EA is going to go, okay, the game's $70 now. We're going to start tacking on an extra $5 of microtransactions now. So instead of that 1,000 credit pack of being $5, it's going to be $10 now, and so on and so forth. That's the next step. The next logical step is that packs are going to be much more expensive. So, a perfect example is now that they're going to have the season pass. So the game's going to be $70. The season pass used to be $20, and now it's going to be $30 or $40 for the season pass instead of the $20 that it used to be. So it's just a slippery slope, and I'm all for if prices need to go up, they need to go up. I mean, obviously we've been sitting at $60 games for the last 15 years. Something's got to give, but in those 15 years, it's not like game prices have been stagnant. They've done microtransactions. They've started pumping out, $2 DLCs for $15 to $20. It's not like they're they're stuck at $60. They've been figuring out ways to make more money with that by DLCs and microtransactions and cosmetic gear and digital, much more digital transactions. So they're making their money. It's not like we've been at $60 for 15 years. Yes, the game's been at $60 for 15 years, but companies find more and more ways to make money out of that game. So instead of that game just being $60, it's now $60 plus $20 for the year one pass, and then another $20 for the year two pass. And if you didn't do year one, we'll bundle it together for $30, so we can still make money on that year one pass that we didn't really do anything with. So it's not like they weren't making any more money in those 15 years. They found unique and different ways to make money. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how many people jump on the $70 bandwagon, but $70 is just going to make me more apt to be way more judgmental on games, especially if I can't demo them, because I've found more and more times that watching gameplay videos doesn't do it for me because I think, wow, that looks cool. Because I thought that when I watched Squadron's game, I'm like, oh, that looks cool for $40. And then we reviewed it, and I'm like, I wish I got my $40 back. But, I will agree with you, Nick, there. I don't know how this is going to play out and who all is going to jump on board. We'll see, because I think Cyberpunk is still $60, which the development time and the amount of money they put into that is probably more than what EA is doing for Battlefield or for the Call of Duty.
Oh, easily. But Cyberpunk developers, CD Projekt Red, did say that they're not charging for upgrades to the new systems.
Right, and then EA said basically that they don't work, right? If you bought it for the One, it doesn't work for the Series. If you bought it for the One X, it's not the same as the Series X.
Yep, because EA said, I'm going to stick my finger in your butt and get all your money because I hate people.
Right. So, I think it's greed on their part, but yeah. So yep, I agree with you there, Nick. Russ, did you have anything else you want to talk about on this topic?
No, we've covered it all. And twice.
And twice. I mean, we're all going to keep gaming like we always do. We'll just, we'll be more frugal with our games, and we want to review stuff and talk about it when it first comes out. But, the more games cost, the older, the slower our review times will be, unfortunately. But we try to review new stuff, but we also review some older stuff at times. And then, one of the things that I dread is reviewing alpha games, but we will do that from time to time as well. So, yep. I mean, cost of gaming is expensive. It's an expensive hobby, no matter what way you look at it. If you think of it, as Russ pointed out earlier, console gaming is, the cheaper route now. To some extent, yes. If you can live with the bare bones material, yes. If you want an Xbox Series X, it's $500. You got to have a TV to play that on. You're looking at another $200 to $500. So you're looking at $1,000 investment just to play, and we're not talking top-end TV neither, right? You want a top-end TV, you're putting $1,500 plus into that TV. And then if you're doing PC gaming costs you $500 to $1,000 to build a decent gaming rig. And we're not talking top of the line. You want top of the line, you're going to spend $1,500 to $2,000. And not to mention, you're going to spend that $300 on a monitor if you're a gamer that you want that UHD quality gaming monitor or OLED or something like that. So gaming is expensive no matter what way you talk about it. And there's no games in that price list. That's basically bare bones cost for a system. I mean, Xbox and PlayStation, new gen, $500, no game. So, so it's an expensive hobby, and, we all thoroughly enjoy it, or we wouldn't spend the money on it. Cause I guarantee you the amount of money that we each spend on games, we could probably spend on a lot more other things in life. So gaming is expensive. With that, I don't think we have anything else to talk about, right, guys?
I'm spent.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody listening to us rant and talk about the cost of gaming. We hope to catch you in the next episode.